If you like the barbacoa from Chipotle, you are going to love this easy beef barbacoa recipe. It comes out so juicy and flavorful, and it uses simple, common ingredients. Hi everyone, it's Maya from WholesomeYum.com, and I make easy, healthy recipes with 10 ingredients or less. So today I'm showing you how to make barbacoa beef at home. Going to Chipotle has been kind of my thing for years and years because I know I can count on it to taste great, have no artificial ingredients, and they're not paying me to say this or anything. They have no idea who I am. I'm just really a big believer in it. But oftentimes I do want the same thing at home, and that's where this barbacoa recipe comes in. It's almost as easy as going to Chipotle, just as delicious, and lucky for me, they actually posted the ingredients for their recipe on their website. So they didn't post the amounts, but after some experimentation, I came up with this, the best beef barbacoa recipe at home that I've ever had. And I'll show you my favorite healthy way to serve this at the end. Let's do this. So the first thing we're going to do is blend together all the components that are going to flavor the meat, tenderize the meat, and all in all make this more than just shredded beef. So I'm going to start with half a cup of beef broth. I'm gonna add that to a blender. You can also use bone broth for extra nutrition if you like, or really any type of broth works, chicken or vegetable as well, but beef does make the most sense for barbacoa. And add 2 Chipotle chilies and adobo sauce. These are often in the ethnic aisle at the grocery store. And my barbacoa is a little bit spicier than Chipotle's, so use less if you don't like yours super spicy. And 5 cloves of minced garlic. I actually used jarred garlic this time for convenience. That's about 2.5 teaspoons, but you can mince it fresh if you like. And it might work to put in whole cloves or just roughly chop them, but I haven't tried that to confirm. If your blender isn't very powerful, you might also want to chop the Chipotle chilies as well rather than adding them whole like I did. And 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. This is going to help to tenderize the meat because it's an acid. And I like the flavor of apple cider vinegar, but white vinegar works as well if that's what you have on hand. Next, we'll need 2 tablespoons of lime juice. I prefer fresh, but you can use bottled for convenience if you like. And that's usually about 1 lime. So I'll slice this in half, use my handy juicer. And there might be a better way to do this. I've heard there's some devices that will catch the juice for you, but this is what I do. I just squeeze it over a measuring spoon. This lime is a little bit larger, so it looks like it's going to be a little more than 2 tablespoons for the whole thing, but I'll just use 2 tablespoons for the recipe. That lime juice is going to do a couple of things. It's going to add flavor. It's also going to tenderize the meat along with the vinegar so that it turns out fall apart tender. But in a pinch, if you don't have lime juice, you can use more vinegar or lemon juice will work as well. Now it's time for the dried herbs and spices. We've got a tablespoon of dried oregano, 2 teaspoons of cumin, half a teaspoon of dried cloves. These are optional, so you can skip them if you don't like that flavor. It does come out pretty mild in the recipe though. 2 teaspoons of salt. I like to use sea salt, but any kind of salt you have will work. And half a teaspoon of black pepper. It's not a lot because the chilies in here are also spicy. Now I'll just puree that until smooth. Sometimes the peppers get stuck to the edges here, so if your blender is like mine, just throw them back in there. Also a little tip, this actually almost overflowed, so you may want to use the larger jar if your blender has multiple sizes. That already looks really good and flavorful. We're gonna set this aside and prepare the beef. For this amount of seasoning, you're going to need 3 pounds of meat. I have chuck roast here. If you like, you can also use beef brisket. The key is to use something with a lot of marbling and collagen like these cuts. That is what's going to get the barbacoa fall apart tender. So I'm just gonna cut this into 2-inch chunks. And I don't recommend trimming the fat on this unless there's like a really huge chunk, because that is going to give the barbacoa really good flavor. So I just cut this into slices, and now I'm cutting in the opposite direction. If your cut of beef is really thick, you may need to cut lengthwise as well. I didn't find that necessary, but we'll see here. So now I'm going to transfer these into my slow cooker. I think the crock pot is the best way to cook barbacoa because it really gets that meat fall apart tender. There might be other methods you can use as well. The Instant Pot most likely would work, or possibly slow roasting in the oven or the stovetop. I haven't tried those methods yet, so let me know if you do try it. The other thing to keep in mind is if you do have time and the desire, you can sear the chunks of beef before you place them in the slow cooker. This will give them even more flavor. You're not looking for them to get cooked through at that step, just enough to actually brown them on the outside, which will give them that extra flavor. I'm skipping that step because I'm all about easy. This recipe has really minimal prep and I like it that way. So just arrange those in an even layer. Now I'll just take this delicious seasoning mixture and pour it over the beef in the crock pot. Try to make sure each piece of beef is covered if you can. The liquid won't actually cover, maybe that was the wrong phrase. It won't actually cover the meat, but just make sure it's coated. This looks pretty dry right now, but it is going to release more moisture as it cooks. So for the last step before I cook it is I'll add 2 bay leaves. Just place them on the top for easy removal later because we will not be eating these. Cover that with a lid. Let the slow cooker do all the work. Cook it for 4 to 6 hours on high or 8 to 10 hours on low. This is ready. So what I'm gonna do is use my handy tweezers. You might have seen these in my other videos. They're actually for food styling, but I like to use them for tasks like this. Get the bay leaves out of there. Now we'll shred this with 2 large forks. It should come apart really easily. If it's tough and doesn't do that, that's usually a sign that it needs to be cooked for longer. If you don't like big pieces of fat, you can also use the tweezers if you have these, or the fork, whatever works, to remove those as well. Now you don't have to do this, but if you have time, put the slow cooker lid back on for another 10 minutes. This is going to help the meat just absorb some of those juices. If you don't have time, no worries, you can serve it right away too. So now this is ready and I can transfer it out of here. There is still quite a bit of liquid, which is okay, but I don't want quite all that liquid, so I'm taking just the meat. And this does make a pretty big batch, so the good news is it stores very well. You can keep it for 4 to 5 days in the fridge or freeze it for up to 6 months. If you're going to be freezing it for a while, you may want to store it with the liquid to keep it juicy. We're having this for dinner today, so I'm leaving the liquid behind. I'm using tongs here, but you can also use a slotted spoon if you like. Tongs kind of take a while, but that's what I had on hand. And this already has plenty of moisture on it, but if you want even more, you can just spoon some of the liquid on top. So before serving this, I like to add an additional squeeze of lime and some chopped cilantro. If you like cilantro, gives it some color. So Chipotle can turn your barbacoa into a rice bowl, a burrito, whatever, but my favorite way to serve this is actually a salad. So I'll show you what I put in mine. It's a lot of the stuff Chipotle has available, some modifications. So I have some romaine lettuce here and some diced tomatoes. You can use cherry tomatoes instead and just slice those in half if you don't want to deal with dicing whole tomatoes. I have Roma tomatoes at my house, so that's what I'm using. And some diced red onions as well. Next I will add the barbacoa, which is our star, and some guacamole because I think guac is a must for anything Mexican. A little sour cream, fresh cilantro, and a couple jalapeno slices. You can serve this with a lime wedge as well. Little surprise today, I have a couple extra taste testers. Now that I've assembled my salad, they are ready to try this. So I'll get a little sour cream, some guac, and of course, some of that barbacoa. And maybe a lettuce leaf as well. Who wants to try first? All right, well, okay, Bella. Okay. Your turn?
Yes.
What do you want in it? The avocado? The barbacoa? You want sour cream?
Yes.
Yes. What do you think? Does it pass the test? There you have it. If you like this barbacoa recipe, be sure to try my taco salad next. It takes only 20 minutes.